The best speeches I've ever delivered, the ones that moved people, that made them cry, that got standing ovations, that made people wait in line afterwards to come and speak to me, to say, wow, Luca, that was special. All those speeches have one thing in common. Whenever I was writing them, I cried. But who am I to be speaking here in front of you today? I'm Luca, and at the age of 18, I've already delivered speeches in front of 2,000 people. I've competed in public speaking competitions. I've lost, I've won, I've received standing ovations. People have given me compliments and praise, and they've asked me how I do it. So now I help rising leaders deliver high-stakes, magnetic speeches. And in today's video, I'll be telling you why you don't necessarily have to cry while writing it, but there needs to be something called emotional depth, or we need to add an emotional dimension to our speeches here. So let me show you this graph. If we don't, if we listen to this video and we just ignore it, because this kid kind of sucks, everyone kind of speaks at this level, all right? This is a graph. And it's okay. This is the norm. And then if we want to add a little bit of storytelling, potentially pausing to our speech, and we pause a bit better, we improve a bit, right? And if we want to have better body language and we use our palms a bit more effectively, we improve a bit. But I've noticed that the most significant impact is when you add emotion to your speech. And if you can successfully add emotion, passion, and convey real interest in what you're talking about, it just like destroys everything else. It destroys the graph. And this here, I call emotional. Let me just hold this board before it crushes me. It's an emotional dimension. All right. You need to add a sense of emotion and passion and almost love for what you're talking about. All right. I have a few examples here. I once had to deliver a speech to introduce this new drive which we were doing. It was Women's Month, and so we were collecting money and collecting donations, tampons, sanitary pads for underprivileged women. Now, this is, to be quite frank, not something I'm necessarily passionate about. Sure, helping them, this is a cool cause, I'm glad to be a part of it, but it's not like in my free time I'm solving these problems here. It's not like in my free time I'm researching this topic. It's not like when I speak about tampons, my eyes light up. And so I delivered this speech, and I didn't really think it was going to be anything, extravagant or crazy. But when I spoke about it, there was this almost unexpected amount of buy-in, and everyone really enjoyed the speech, and donations were really high. We got a lot of money. We got a lot of tampons and stuff. And we had a great impact. And this speech, okay, I'm not giving myself all the credit here, but the speech was a contributor. And what this speech had was it had an emotional dimension to it. And the way I did that, because here's a topic and here's me, and we're two different, we're two different entities. I don't necessarily align with the tampons, all right? So how do I add this passion, this love, this emotion to something which I'm not necessarily passionate about or aligned with or interested in, for that matter? I ended up beginning the speech with a story, a personal story about how did it go again? It was like physical activity at school, and I took my shirt off, and this guy said I was fat, and then I gave countless examples of times where I just cowered and shied away from life, and there was a cute girl, but I cowered away. I didn't ask her. I had my body, I cowered away, I was shy. And you know, I gave these countless examples where I was, where I was weak and where I could just cower away, and then I transitioned that into, oh, but then we have, for some people that can't cower away, you know, when they face these challenges, they can't just be like me and go and hide. These people are women. And then I raise the problem, this and that, underprivileged, Women's Month, etc. Boom. I have another example where I remember I had this speech. It was a public speaking competition. The certificate's not, it was for this medal. And it was a speech on Winston Churchill's quote, "Greatness comes with great responsibility." Now, I don't necessarily have much to talk about that topic. You know, it's okay, cool quote, Winston Churchill, this and that. I don't really align, or I'm not insanely passionate about that, or you understand what I'm trying to say here. It's okay, it's a quote, what now? But I made it my own, and I was able to connect to it emotionally and add this like new dimension to my speech simply through a story. And in the story, I spoke about my brother and, you know, how we've kind of drifted apart and saying goodbye. It wasn't about saying goodbye. No, it wasn't about letting go. It was about never getting the chance to say goodbye. And I made it deep, and it was cool. And the way I added this emotional dimension to that bland, almost concrete topic was through storytelling. And I managed to make it my own. And while I was writing that speech, that story, I cried. I unraveled micro traumas from the past. I went deeper. I asked why. I would cry a bit. I would expose certain emotions. And that was real. When I delivered the speech, I didn't cry. I was normal. I made jokes. It was unexpected. The ending, the laugh, 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 cry formula, it worked really, really well. But while I was writing, there was a lot of emotion. And so I took that emotion from the story, and I transitioned from that. I used all that overflowing emotion from the story, and I let it spill over into the topic, into the quote, into the address, the message, the research, the etc. But the way we created that emotion was all through a story. Another one, valediction. I was valedictorian while I was saying the speech. And while I was writing the speech, I ended up crying. I spoke about my high school years and like the friends I made and the journey and the triumph and the defeat and the everything. And as I was writing, I would go deeper, and I would ask myself questions, and I would feel an emotion. I'll go deeper, and I'd write about the emotion. I ended up crying while I was writing, and while I was delivering the speech near the end, I'll be honest, I ended up crying as well, a little bit, a few tears. My voice got a bit shaky. But people saw that, and they connected to it, and they were like, damn, this is real. This is emotion. This is passion. And they loved it. And they stood up and they gave a standing ovation right after. And that's what you want here. So let me just quickly clear this board. It's like it's going to fall off the wall. Well, it's not even hooked. I'm just kind of resting it on the bookshelf, so that's my fault. Let me dry it now. So the point I was going to make now is we have a topic, we have us, maybe topic, audience, two independent events. And in order, the gap that bridges us, let me draw a bridge here. How's that for a bridge? The gap that bridges us is a story, in a nutshell. And I made notes on storytelling. I've read books on this. Matthew Dix's book, Storyworthy. It's something I've practiced, I've refined, and I've crafted, and I've made better. And so if you want my free storytelling notes, just check the link in the description. I'll give it to you for free. Yeah, probably check it out because I put a lot of effort into it and it's hopefully helpful. Let me know. I'd really appreciate your feedback on the notes. But back to the video. Us, topic, audience. How do we connect to the audience? How do we connect to the topic? How do we enhance it and make it better, just like that graph suggested? How do we elevate the level like that? It's all emotion, energy and motion. And the way you seamlessly create that is through story. So in all of my speeches, I always begin them with a story. Everything, every presentation, story. Speech in assembly, story. Interview, story. Telling me a little bit about yourself, story. There's so much emotion and personality and authenticity in a story, it doesn't make sense for you not to add it. If you tell a personal story, any speech in a competition where everyone has to deliver a speech on the same topic, greatness comes with great responsibility. If I take my own personal story, I make the topic my own. No one can take that away from you. A personal story with own personal emotion, which people can notice and see, and not only notice and see it, but they can feel it. And that's what you want. That's how you move audiences here, through storytelling. Now in this video, I'm not going to go into too much depth on how to write a story. That's a story for another day. Check the notes out if you want that. But this is simply just a call to action to start incorporating storytelling in your speeches. It adds emotion, it adds depth, it adds authenticity. When you speak about your personal experience, when you write a story that you took all this emotion from you and you put in the story, then you take the story and you put it into your speech, it's real. That is passion, that is love, that is what being a human is all about. And when your audience notices this humanness to your speech, they like it, they love it, they connect with it, they remember it. And so that's the video in a nutshell. Add stories to your speeches. So if you have any further questions, just feel free to reach out to me because I really want to help you here, and take care.